How much do I believe Kamala is going to have? How much is she going to move on Gaza? I think right now, as it seems, considering that there are, in air quotes, ceasefire negotiations that are ongoing, uh, which, by the way, seemingly are not very productive. Okay, uh, so far, not so good. In the first 2 days, there was actually, in the first 2 days of the ceasefire negotiations, there was actually some momentum leading up to the ceasefire convos. America said that they got Israel to basically align on on key high profile hostages in Israeli detention that they would release. That seemed like a good thing. Hamas and Hamas officials said that they were not going to participate in the ceasefire conversations, which of course wasn't like entirely correct. They were just doing shuttle diplomacy, like they were talking through intermediaries as they've done before. Israel's goals for the ceasefire negotiations have basically been to reiterate that, it's not a real ceasefire and that they get to fucking blow Gaza to smithereens after they extract all the hostages, which obviously is not a tenable position. And all the while Israel is supposedly having these ceasefire negotiations, breaking news from this morning, 24 people are now being reported to have been killed in the Israeli airstrike overnight in Gaza, including a mother with her 6 children.
That 24 people are now reported to have been killed in that Israeli airstrike overnight in Gaza, including, of course, the mother with her 6 children. There have been several airstrikes across Gaza conducted by Israel and throughout the day yesterday, including in southern Lebanon, of course. But the latest figure from that particular airstrike in Gaza, multiple airstrikes in Gaza, 24 people killed, and among them a mother and her 6 children.
Great stuff. Great stuff overall. Moeen Rabbani has a thread on the ceasefire conversations, but the latest is that Hamas rejected the latest hostage ceasefire deal, and we have some interviews with them as well, which I will take a look at. Hamas commenting on the last round of negotiations in Doha. We dealt responsibly with the efforts of the mediators and welcomed the declaration of the UN Security Council resolution. We asked for a plan to be presented in anticipation of Netanyahu's procrastination and obstacles, and we were assured that he was continuing to put it forward to thwart the mediators' efforts. The new proposal is consistent with Netanyahu's conditions, such as his rejection of the permanent ceasefire and a comprehensive withdrawal from the Gaza Strip, which prevents the completion of the exchange deal. We hold Netanyahu fully responsible for thwarting the mediators' efforts and for the lives of his prisoners who are exposed to the same danger that our people are exposed to. So when people say, Hamas is like negotiating at the table, or Hamas is not showing up and they're rejecting the bridging proposals, it is specifically because Israel is refusing to meet the earlier conditions that the UN voted on, the earlier conditions that Biden presented, the earlier conditions that Hamas actually presented in late February and agreed to once. There's always a little bit of a double speak in terms of like how these conversations are being handled. It is not a real ceasefire proposal if Israel refuses to agree to the terms that the United States has actually put forward in terms of having it be a phase 1 ceasefire, moving on to a phase 2 where there's a permanent cessation of hostilities and then reconstruction. Okay? Hamas rejects the new U.S. bridging proposal, says Barak Ravid. The new proposal addresses Netanyahu's conditions, especially with regard to his refusal to stop the war and fully withdraw from Gaza and to continue control over the Philadelphia corridor and the Netzarim corridor. The proposal sets new conditions regarding the prisoner exchange process and withdraws from previous clauses in a way that does not allow reaching an agreement, which is crazy because even fucking Barak Ravid is openly saying that it's Hamas rejecting the new U.S. bridging proposal, which Israel completely changed. Like, that is ridiculous. Israel is saying that they want to maintain troops in the Philadelphia corridor, is, for those of you who don't understand, surrounding the Rafah region. Israel wants to still be in, like, still have boots on the ground in southern Gaza, surrounding the Gaza Strip, specifically on the Egyptian border crossing. The Iranian retaliation, the expected Iranian retaliation to Israel, is seemingly just a additional pressure point on these deals coming to a close. Like, the American government and the Hamas officials are using additional Iranian pressure because Iran does have the right to respond to Israel violating Iranian sovereignty once again. They're utilizing that as another pressure point on Israel to do the right thing and to agree to the terms that, like, supposedly they presented. However, they are the ones who keep fucking saying, yeah, these deals that we actually presented are not good. Apparently, CNN pressed the Hamas official Osama Hamdan on whether Hamas accepts any responsibility for the loss of civilian life in Gaza, which residents have told CNN they believe it does. He wouldn't answer and instead took me on a history lesson of events he didn't know I witnessed myself.
Joined by Osama Hamdan. He is a senior member.
I love the fucking I love that as Israel is pummeling Gaza with American weapons, okay, guided missile systems that we are giving to Israel. He's like, how much of the responsibility is on you? Yes, he is asking Hamas to condemn Hamas. American news media is literally so fucking insane that, like, a joke that I made a couple months back of, like, well, they're going to start asking Hamas to denounce Hamas is now happening.
He joins me now from Doha in Qatar.
Remember, it was the most unbelievably anti-Semitic sentiment to say that, like, perhaps Israel's 75 years of occupation and apartheid and ongoing genocide had something to do with the retaliation to said genocide on October 7th. That was, like, the most unacceptable thing you could say. People literally got fucking fired from their jobs. People literally had their futures, their future prospect jobs fucked with as a consequence of repeating the same exact positions that the Haaretz editorial board had. Okay, just a fun little reminder that, like, post October 7, if you were like, hey, the responsible party in this circumstance still is very much the party with nuclear weapons, the militarized state that gets unconditional and unshackled, unrestricted American weapons all day, every day. That party perhaps has a little bit of a responsibility in the matter, as they have, over the course of 75 years, only increased the brutality that the Palestinian people under their occupation has been subjected to, which of course is going to lead to retaliation from those people. That in and of itself is the most unacceptable, most anti-Semitic thing you could say, okay? Unless you are doing it right. There's absolutely no such thing as a responsible party. What? No, there is a responsible party. The responsible party always is the more powerful actors, especially if there is, like, an asymmetrical warfare being an asymmetrical war that like a population that is captive is experiencing. Like, what are we talking about? Palestinians across the board are a captive population under Israeli occupation, and this is not a controversial talking point at all. This quite literally is the reality, and is not only the reality, but, like, even the International Court of Justice has recognized this reality.
Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
Let me begin here. We're 10 months into this war.
Not a fucking ceasefire. Israel just want to win. Our government has chosen to die with Israel. Take responsibility for Israel, please. It's such an abuser's defense, too. Like, why did you make Israel drop bombs on children? You really should not have upset them. How are we meant to handle them after you did this? Like, come on. Exactly. That's precisely what they're doing.
Gaza Health Ministry officials say that 40,000 Palestinians, the majority of them civilians, have been killed. On October 7th, Hamas killed hundreds of Israeli civilians. Does Hamas...
Bro, saying that from Tel Aviv in Israel, okay, on August, almost a year of Israeli genocide. Okay? Almost a year of direct Israeli genocide. Like, they opened up kill zones. Okay? They killed American citizens. They killed like international humanitarian workers. They've killed a shit ton of humanitarian workers that are also of Arab descent that no one gives a fuck about. Hundreds of journalists have been slaughtered. Thousands of children have been slaughtered. And this guy's still like, well, you know, don't you think that you have some responsibility for the 40,000 majority civilians, not majority civilians, sorry, majority women and children and the elderly, overwhelming majority of which are women, children, and the elderly? Don't you have some responsibility for that?
Today regret?
Like, America is more responsible than Hamas for those deaths, okay? Straight up.
The October 7th terror attacks?
Well, it seems to me that you are giving the Israelis the right to kill the Palestinians. When you ask if we feel regret for what Israel has done, you have to understand that Israel has been killing the Palestinians for the last 76 years. And when the Palestinians react against the occupation, who failed the Palestinians, who failed Oslo Agreement, who continue undermining all the peace process and trying to take over all the Palestinian lands, talking in public about kicking out 2 million Palestinians from West Bank to East Jordan. All this is the right for Israel. And when the Palestinians react against the occupation, they have to regret what the Israelis are doing, killing them by thousands,
Mr.
as
Hamdan,
if the Palestinians were the cause of those killing.
I've been coming to this part of the world for more than 20 years, and I have personally covered terror attacks by Hamas that killed Israeli civilians more than 20 years. So I'm asking...
Bro, once again, you've been covering this region for more than 20 years. You're literally in Tel Aviv. It kind of seems like you have a little bit of a bias here, because for the past 20 years, if you're only talking about like Israeli citizens that have died by Palestinian hands or whatever, and not the fucking Palestinians that are being ruthlessly slaughtered in the hands of Israel, like, the numbers on the board do not fucking add up. Okay? That is crazy. Brother, Israel kills their own fucking civilians and their own hostages. So far, Israel is responsible for more of the hostages dying, both on their way out of the Gaza envelope into the Gaza Strip and also directly in the Gaza Strip, than Hamas has killed Israeli hostages. So what the fuck are we talking about here?
You this.
There is no defensible position here. This guy is just trying to literally like debate lord this dude, a Hamas official, to be like, hey, yeah, I'm doing my fucking job. My job is to offer only contentious interviews to the envoys of the Palestinian side. That's disingenuous. Nothing I said is disingenuous. Everything I said is 100% correct. The only reason why you would consider that to be disingenuous is if you are completely oblivious to the reality. Okay? There have been reports. They are captured. Exactly. They are captured. Okay? They are captured by Palestinian resistance forces. There has been an ongoing active effort to come to terms with a ceasefire negotiation and a hostage release. Okay? This is correct. That doesn't change the calculation that I just brought forward. Okay? Israel has absolutely killed more of the Israeli hostages than they have saved. Israel has killed more of the Israeli hostages than Hamas has killed Israeli hostages. Okay? That is absolutely the truth. You can't say that this is disingenuous. It is just the fucking truth. Okay? That's it. This is before we even get to the calculation behind how many Palestinians have been detained falsely. If they weren't captured, would they be dead? Okay. You do realize that this exact same principle stands for all of the Palestinians. I don't think you understand. If you don't consider, and this might be an implicit bias caused by so much slanted propaganda against Palestinians, but you have to recognize something here. There are thousands of Palestinians under permanent detention, both from the West Bank and also in the Gaza Strip as well, that Israel currently has held as hostages. Okay? Like right now in Israeli prisons, they're being raped to death by Israeli prison guards. That is literally a thing that is happening currently. Okay? Every single thing that Israel has said Hamas is probably going to do to the Israeli hostages, Israel is literally done. Okay? Israel has straight up done human shields. Israel used Palestinians to send them down into fucking tunnel systems and whatnot, dressed up in IDF gear. Okay? Israel claims Palestinians are, Hamas uses Palestinians as human shields. I'm for freeing Palestinians, but I don't agree with the point that Israel killed Israelis captured by Hamas, but they did. You don't have to agree with that point, but that is the truth. When Israel bombs entire city blocks, they are doing that knowing full well that there's a likelihood that there are literally Israelis in those city blocks, Israeli captives in those city blocks. Not only that, but also, maybe you forgot, but Israel directly shot and killed 3 hostages that were free because they did not believe that the hostages were actually fucking Israeli civilians. They thought those were Palestinian civilians. So, like, you can say you don't agree, but it doesn't change the reality. Like, Israel literally fucking shot Israeli hostages that were waving a fucking white flag, being like, we're Israeli, we're Israeli. They shot them point blank. They chased one into a building and killed them, alongside all these aid workers and all these journalists that they fucking ruthlessly slaughtered alongside their family members. So when you say, I don't believe that, okay, I don't believe that, I don't agree with that point, you're just not agreeing with the reality. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not expecting you to see like my biased opinion or whatever, or understand my side of the equation. I'm just trying to get you to openly recognize the reality that Israel is pummeling Gaza and directly killing Israeli hostages as a consequence of that, including the Israeli forces on the ground directly shooting point blank and killing a bunch of Israeli hostages that were trying to be saved by the Israeli military. They did that. You know, they also, this isn't like fake news or whatever. They've openly admitted that. They also have a directive called the Hannibal Directive, which dictates that retreating Palestinian forces, if they have Israeli civilian or military hostages, they open up carte blanche, like they just open fire on their own citizens in an effort not to have a bargaining chip that they have to contend with. Likely a majority of hostages that have been killed were killed in IDF airstrikes or lack of medical supplies, etc. I doubt Hamas would have executed dozens of what it sees as bargaining chips. Exactly. And if they were to execute them, they would do it on fucking camera. Why the fuck? They would do it to apply pressure, to be like, hey, see, this is how little you care about your hostages. We're going to start killing them. You fucking see movies. You know how this works, okay? You've at least watched a movie where there is a hostage deal in play, okay? Like, nobody fucking takes the time out. Nobody takes the time out to, conduct a military operation and put so many lives at risk if they're not going to use those the hostages that they took as a bargaining chip to get Israel to meet their demands. And that's precisely the reason why the Hannibal Directive works to begin with. The reason why there is such a thing as the Hannibal Directive is specifically because Israel knows that Hamas or any Palestinian resistance group will actually use the captured Israeli hostages as bargaining chips. So they fucking try to kill them beforehand, as they did on October 7. Now, obviously, it wasn't the majority of the Israeli citizens that were killed in the hands of the Israeli military, but a decent chunk of them, especially in the kibbutzim, were actually killed by tank fire. Okay? We know that now. And that is not speculation. That is Israel's own admission. Okay? This is Israeli reporting. There's plenty of Israeli reporting on the matter. There's plenty of there's plenty of internal security assessments that have been made since then. They used helicopter fires. They used helicopter fire and they used artillery from tanks to stop Israeli hostages from being carried over to the Palestinian side to Gaza. they shot them and killed them. They shot them down.
It's just looking at the last 10 months of this conflict for a moment. Does Hamas accept any responsibility for the deaths of Palestinian civilians in Gaza? Because as you know, Hamas tunnels, Hamas military units are based under and around homes, mosques, schools in Gaza. Do you accept responsibility for any of the deaths in Gaza?
Yeah. Unfortunately, you have covered this region for 20 years, but you was watching the region by the Israeli eyes. You didn't show the Israelis killing thousands of Palestinians within those 20 years. In 2014, Israel attacked Gaza and they killed more than 4,000 Palestinians. You didn't see that. They attacked Gaza and they killed in one day 1,000 Palestinians in 2008, and you didn't see that. Those attacks.
Actually, I was here in 2014. I was here in 2014, and I was here in 2008.
Yeah, but you're not listening to this dude. He's right. Okay? He's absolutely 100% correct. You were here, you were reporting on it, but you were seeing the region through the lens of, he says Israeli eyes, but like through the lens of a pro-Israel attitude. Okay? That is true. That's not like a shocking thing to recognize. He himself, the way he's talking about the situation in 2014, he's making it seem like it's like, oh, well, I talked about all the Hamas killing Israeli civilians. It's like, bro, the numbers are obviously not even remotely close to one another.
I'm asking you if Hamas accepts. I do, but what you're saying is factually not true. I was here for both. I was here for both of those conflicts. My question is, does Hamas accept any responsibility for the deaths of its own people in Gaza?
You can't, excuse me, you can't ask and answer by yourself. Either you let me to answer, or you can finish that talking by yourself to yourself. If you wish that, it's okay. I'm done. I have to answer, and I want to say what I want to say. It's not your duty to dictate what I'm supposed to say. It's not your duty to receive the answers you wish to receive.
So the question is, do you accept responsibility for the deaths of civilians in Gaza? That's the question.
You still keep watching what is happening by.
Can you imagine this kind of conversation being held against an Israeli official? Like, not even post October 7, okay? But like even now, okay, almost a year into Israel's genocide in Gaza, can you imagine someone on CNN being this aggressive and having this kind of the line of questioning against an Israeli official, some of which are declared war criminals now, okay, for the offensive strikes that they're conducting? Not even like not even if they were like Mehdi Hassan on Zeteo will do that, and that's pretty much it. And that's an independent outlet now, okay? He used to do that on MSNBC. He no longer does it on MSNBC. I have never heard a CNN, New York Times, like any major Western media outlet cover Israel's genocidal actions with even a fraction of the intensity that this man has for the Palestinian leadership. Okay? The only exception is Channel 4. Yes, you're right. The only exception is Channel 4 in British media. With the exception of Channel 4 in British media, there is not a single fucking moment where a high-ranking American media official has had a high-ranking Israeli official and have held them to account in a similar regard. The double standard is crazy. Okay?
The Israeli eyes, listening by the Israeli ears, acting as if you are part of Israeli military attack against the Palestinians. It seems that you support the killing of 40,000 Palestinians. You are not blaming the Israelis for anything. You are talking about Palestinians who are being killed as if they were nothing, and you are just saying that the Palestinians were killing the Israelis. Let's go to West Bank. There is no Hamas. There is no action from Hamas, and the Israelis have killed already 800 Palestinians in the last 10 months. What about this? They are talking about the Palestinian
In fact,
sir,
as you know, CNN has covered the deaths of Palestinians quite closely. But let me ask you a question here, because you're saying,
unfortunately, you are not.
so I'm going to quote.
You should ask him, like, when is the last time you had an Israeli high-ranking official address their crimes? Like, address their war crimes that are visible by, obviously, like, any honest person's eyes, that not only are visible by any honest person's eyes, but, like, war crimes that are so egregious that the human rights organizations internationally have openly called into question Israel's actions and misconduct, that international organs of justice have considered them to be war crimes. Like, have you ever asked an Israeli official these kinds of leading questions? The only smoke that you have is for victims. Okay, that's it. The only smoke you have is for victims who dare say enough is enough. We're not letting this slide any longer. That's it. That's it. They have this kind of attitude only towards victims of a genocide. Okay? And those who dare resist genocide. Never to those conducting it.
I'm going to quote you right now.
You didn't show the women who were
I'm going to quote
killed.
you right now, a Palestinian in Gaza.
We are talking about 16,000 children who are being killed by the Israelis, and you are asking if the resistance is responsible.
I'm
for
very
that.
aware of the civilian toll in Gaza.
Excuse me, you are not listening, and you are not allowing me to answer. You don't want to listen to.
When have we ever seen proof of Hamas hiding behind civilians in the most densely populated place on earth? There is none. Hamas hiding behind civilians in the most densely slammed, like, open air prison is even more of a ridiculous assessment to make than, like, Israel having fucking IDF headquarters next to a goddamn mall in Tel Aviv. You know what I mean? Like, Israel does the exact same shit, if not significantly worse shit overall, and it doesn't really matter. Okay? It doesn't really fucking matter. There is a reason why there is a reason why everybody understands, every honest person understands that the way to deal with Hamas is not through warfare. And this is a reality that even, like, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has openly recognized at this point. Okay? That dealing with Hamas has to be a political deal, not a military deal, because everyone is a part of the Palestinian resistance, because your enemies are the entirety of the Palestinian population. You can't comb through the entire Palestinian population and be like, who has allegiances to the fucking interior ministries? Who has allegiances to the civilian population? When you consider all matter of the civilian population and the civil governance division of Hamas to also still very much be a part of the military, and you keep killing all these children and claiming that they're fucking Hamas. That's it. Israel does not consider Palestinian civilians to be civilians at all. They see them as either collateral damage or pesky little fucking victims that get in the way of them conducting their ethnic cleansing campaign that then the media covers every now and then, and it frustrates Israel that the media is even offering any sort of coverage whatsoever. That's why they that's why they turn around and say stuff like, oh, well, Pallywood, they're faking their deaths, or they're telegenically dead children. Words that, Benjamin Netanyahu is literally used.
To the facts. You just want to listen to yourself. It's okay. That's enough. It's fine.
No, I'm going to quote you now. I'm going to quote you now, a Palestinian from Gaza.
You want just to hear to yourself. You just want to listen to yourself and to the Israelis. If you are aware and worried for the reaction of the Israelis, don't talk to Hamas. Thank you very much. The Israelis have killed us. And
in fact, we've invited you on the air to ask you questions.
No, you didn't invite him on air to ask him questions. Those are not questions you're asking. There's a genocide going on. It's like fucking literally having like a leader of a Warsaw Ghetto Uprising resistance group, having them on and being like, how much of the responsibility of the ethnic cleansing operations that the Nazis are engaging with, how much of that responsibility falls on your shoulders for resisting against an active occupation and genocide? Okay? It's no different than that. It is straight up no different than that, dude. Literally. And they're obviously in the beginning in October, because of the unimaginable amount of like uninitiated people in the Western world, especially in the United States of America, making a comparison such as that one, even though it is an apt comparison, is a perfectly valid comparison to make, was met with like shock. People were like, I can't believe you're making these comparisons, but it is the reality. Okay.
No. In a responsible position for the killings of the Palestinians. You are supporting the killings of the Palestinians. I'm sorry to hear that from the CIA.
And it's now after, 11 months after, or 10 months, it's now gotten to a point where people do recognize that. People do fucking recognize that, like, the situation is like slanted in the favor of one side over the other.